My name is Ren Castellano, and I turned 18 4 days ago. At my birthday dinner, while my mother was lighting the candles, my father leaned close to my ear and said, almost warmly, "Tomorrow we'll get you to sign a few things for the family. Nothing you need to read, just housekeeping." I thanked him. I let him kiss the top of my head. Then I went up to my room, opened my laptop, and finished the last step of something I had been quietly putting in place for 3 months. Signing the document that placed my grandmother's entire estate, the orchard, the accounts, the house on Quail Hollow Road, all of it, into a trust that no signature of mine at any future kitchen table could ever undo. By the next afternoon, my parents and my older brother understood that the land they had already half sold, the money they had already half spent on paper, was locked behind a wall the law had built 6 years earlier, and they had never known existed. My mother sat down on the kitchen floor. My brother, who had already shaken hands on a deal for property that had never belonged to him, started dialing a lawyer. Before I tell you what happened next, take a second to hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and your local time in the comments. I genuinely love seeing where these stories travel. Now let me take you back 5 years, to an October afternoon in an apple orchard, when my grandmother said a thing to me that I did not understand until the night before my 18th birthday. The autumn I turned 13, my grandmother, Lucia Castellano, drives out to pick me up in a station wagon older than I am, and we go to the orchard. It is 40 minutes from town, 11 acres of apple trees gone half wild, a clapboard farmhouse with a tin roof, and a barn that leans a little more each year. The place smells like cut grass and bruised fruit and wood smoke from the stove she still cooks on, and underneath all of it, something sweeter that I can never quite put a name to. "Hold the ladder steady," she tells me, and I do, while she goes up after the high apples she is far too old to be reaching for. We spend the whole morning in the trees. She teaches me how to tell a ripe apple from one that only looks ripe, how you cup it and twist and let it come away on its own. How, if you have to pull hard, it isn't ready, and you're only hurting the tree. My grandfather died before I was born, so it has always been just her out here, and the trees, and now me. At noon, my grandmother makes us lunch at a table in the farmhouse kitchen, a heavy old table with one leg she has shimmed with a folded matchbook for as long as I can remember. We eat, and then she takes her coffee out to the porch and pats the chair beside her, and we sit and watch the light come down gold through the orchard rows. "This land stays in the family, Ren," she says that afternoon, looking out at the trees and not at me. "But you remember something. Family isn't the people who share your name. Family is whoever does the watering." I am 13. I think she is just talking the way old people talk, in little riddles that don't quite land. She is not. That whole autumn, I come back to the orchard every Saturday. I learn which trees are failing and which only look it. I learn how to prime the well pump when it loses its catch, how to bank the wood stove so it holds overnight, how she rotates the firewood so the bottom of the stack never rots. What I do not know that autumn is that my grandmother is already sitting across a desk from a lawyer in town, talking about this exact orchard and this exact granddaughter. Back in town, the air in our house is a different temperature. We live in a development on the north end, a beige house among beige houses, a yard my father pays a service to mow, a finished basement where he runs the books for the 2 car washes he owns. The house is fine. It is climate-controlled and clean and entirely fine, and it has never once smelled like anything I could name. My older brother Mason is 16 and has the bedroom over the garage, the big one, repainted twice already to his specifications. My room still has the builder-grade carpet and a water stain on the ceiling shaped like a country no one has ever visited. At dinner, my father brings up the orchard the way he brings it up at least once a month. "That land is just sitting out there going to brush," he says, working at his food. "You know what acreage like that is worth now, with the new highway going in? It's irresponsible not to look at our options." My mother hums her agreement. I say, quietly, that Grandma told me the orchard stays in the family. My father laughs. Not a cruel laugh, worse than cruel, an indulgent one. You were a little kid, Wren. She was being sweet to you. Nobody asks me anything after that. The conversation slides over to Mason's lacrosse, his recruiting emails, the showcase tournament my mother has already cleared her whole weekend for. I had placed first that month in a regional essay competition. The certificate is still rolled up in my backpack. After dinner, I clear the plates, and on the counter, half under the day's mail, I find a glossy brochure. Hollow Ridge Estates, premier acreage, now assembling parcels. There is a phone number written in the margin in handwriting that is not my father's. I slide it back exactly where it was, and I go upstairs, and I sit on my bed and think about that shimmed kitchen table, and about somebody, somewhere, already measuring my grandmother's trees in dollars per acre. My grandmother does not die for another 3 years, but the campaign against the orchard begins long before she's gone, which is its own kind of cruelty I did not have a word for then. When I am 15, she has a small stroke, recovers most of the way, and from that point my father's monthly comment becomes a weekly one. He stops calling it the orchard. He starts calling it the asset. My mother starts saying things like, "when the time comes," in the gentle, rehearsed voice she uses for things she has already decided. I try, once, at dinner. Grandma wants me to keep it. My mother sets down her fork the careful way she does before she corrects something. Honey, your grandmother says a lot of things. We have to think about what's practical for the whole family. The whole family. I am beginning to understand that in our house, that phrase has never once included me. My grandmother dies in March of the year I turned 16. She holds my hand the last afternoon I sit with her, her grip stronger than it has any right to be. "The orchard is yours, Wren," she says, very clearly, into the quiet of that room. "Don't let them sell my trees. Promise me." I promise her. She closes her eyes. The funeral is on a cold, bright Thursday, folding chairs sinking into soft cemetery grass. At the reception afterward, I watch my father and my brother Mason standing apart from everyone by the window, heads bent together, not eating. Mason has a folder under his arm. I drift close enough to catch one sentence from my father. "We move on it before the estate gets bogged down." They're talking about the orchard, with the funeral food still warm on the tables. I say nothing. I am 16, with no money and no standing and no idea that my grandmother, 3 years before, had already built a wall around the very thing they were whispering about, and had hidden a door to it in a place only I would ever look. Between 16 and almost 18, the orchard becomes my quiet act of disobedience. Every Saturday, I drive out in the rust-eaten pickup I bought with 2 summers of lifeguarding money. I prime the well pump. I clear the windfall apples before they rot and draw wasps. I prune what I know how to prune and leave the rest. I sweep the porch. I tighten the matchbook under the table leg when it works loose. At home, the language keeps shifting under my feet. The orchard becomes the family's property. My father says it that way at dinner, as though it has always been so. Mason, 20 now and selling cars across the county, starts coming around on Sundays, sometimes with a laptop open to land listings, sometimes with a man I don't recognize. I try once more. What about what Grandma wanted? She wanted me to have it. My mother folds her hands. Your grandmother was not herself at the end, Wren. You know that. This is just business. Business. That is the word my family uses for everything that used to be love. The October. I am 17, alone at the orchard. I am clearing out the cedar chest at the foot of my grandmother's bed, the one full of quilts that smell like her. And underneath the bottom quilt, I find an envelope, sealed, my name across the front in my grandmother's slanted hand. Inside is a single business card. Adele Ferraro, attorney at law. And beneath the name, in small letters, Castellano Family Trust. My hands shake, and not from fear, from recognition. My grandmother left this here for me, in the bottom of the chest only I would ever empty. Because she knew. She knew that when she was gone, it would be me out here clearing closets. Not my father, not Mason. Me. I put the card in my wallet. I do not call. Not yet. Some part of me is still waiting, still hoping the people I came from will turn out to be something other than what the brochure on the counter already told me they were. Adele Ferraro calls me first. It is a Tuesday evening in January, 2.5 months before my birthday, and I'm at my desk pretending to do trigonometry when an unknown local number lights up my phone. Ren, my name is Adele Ferraro. I represented your grandmother. Her voice is even and unhurried and careful. The voice of a person who has practiced exactly how to open a conversation like this. I need to see you before you turn 18. There are things you have to understand, and there isn't a great deal of time. She asks me to come to her office that Saturday, by myself. I go. She is somewhere in her 60s, gray hair pinned up, half glasses on a beaded chain. Her office is small and stacked with files and smells like paper and lemon tea. She opens a folder and folds her hands on top of it and looks at me. Your grandmother came to me 6 years ago, she says. She set up an irrevocable trust. The orchard, a savings account, and a brokerage account. The total value, as of the last statement, is a little over $2 million. All of it sits inside the trust. You are the sole beneficiary. The room seems to tilt half a degree. My grandmother left me everything. And she did it while she was alive, on purpose, so that none of it ever passed through her estate, so that none of it could ever go through probate, so that my father and my brother have, in Adele's flat and careful word, no claim. She slides a single page across the desk, a summary, my name typed on the second line. The deed to the orchard was recorded into the trust at the county office 6 years ago, she says. Your father has no idea. The public record has said for 6 years that your grandmother no longer personally owned that land. I ask why my grandmother never told him. Adele takes off her glasses. Your grandmother's exact words to me were, my son will have a sign in that orchard before the headstone's even set. She wanted you protected, Ren. She did not want you used as a bargaining chip in a negotiation with the people you live with. And then she says one more thing, and it changes the temperature of the whole room. There's something you should know. Within the last few weeks, someone has been requesting the title history on that parcel at the county office. More than once. After that meeting, I start paying attention. Not obviously, just quietly, the way you watch weather. The next Sunday, Mason comes for dinner, and afterward he and my father go down to the basement, and the door at the top of the stairs does not quite latch. I stand in the kitchen drying a pan I have already dried, and I listen. My brother's voice first. I've already got the purchase agreement signed with Hollow Ridge, 420, but the title's got to be clean before we can close. My father, lower. How do we clean it up if it's still in Mom's name? Mason, easy, like he's explained it to himself 100 times. Quitclaim deed. She's gone, you're the heir, I help you record it, we sell. It's a standard transfer between family. Nobody at the county is going to blink. A pause, then my father, quieter still. And Ren? My chest goes tight. Mason's answer comes fast, already rehearsed. She's 17. What's she going to do? By the time she's 18 and figures anything out, we've already closed. We'll cut her in. 30 grand for school. Honestly, she should be thanking us. I step back from the door, and my hands are cold. My brother has already signed a contract. $420,000 with a development company for an orchard he does not own, on land that has lived inside a trust for 6 years that he does not know exists. That night, I text Adele 2 words. They're moving. Her reply comes inside of 2 minutes. I thought they might. Come Saturday. We'll have everything ready for you to sign the moment you're of age. The next Saturday, Adele lays the whole thing out on a legal pad, drawing little arrows between dates like a general sketching a campaign. The deed is already in the trust. If Mason files a quitclaim, the county recorder should reject it because the chain of title won't match. The land hasn't been in my grandmother's personal name in 6 years. But, she says, and taps the pad, if he gets clever, if he files an affidavit of heirship, or worse, doctors up some supporting document, he can't actually take ownership, but he can cloud the title. He can tangle it in litigation for a year, maybe more, just out of spite. And that's expensive and exhausting for you, even though you'd win in the end. So I have to move first. You have to move on time, she corrects. She points at the calendar. The instant you turn 18, you're a legal adult. You can formally accept your role as the trust's beneficiary. The moment you sign that acceptance, I drive to the county recorder the next morning and I file a notice of pending legal interest against the property. A Liz Pendens. Once that's on the record, no one can sell or transfer or borrow against that land while it's active. Anything they try to file gets flagged and kicked back. I ask her whether I should tell my parents. She sets her glasses down. Your grandmother hired me to protect you, Wren, she says. Not to negotiate with them on your behalf. There's a difference, and she understood it better than most. I drive home. My father is in the kitchen, lit up, cheerful in a way I have learned to be wary of. There she is. Listen, kiddo, your mom and I want to throw you a real party for the 18th. The whole family, this Saturday. It's a milestone. He's beaming. My mother's beaming. Even Mason, who happens to be there, lifts his beer. I smile too. My father is planning my birthday party. My brother is planning to sell my grandmother's orchard. And I am standing at the kitchen island smiling along because in 11 days, I am going to let every one of them believe the schedule is exactly their schedule. I'm going to be honest with you. The hardest part of all of it was the waiting. Sitting at that dinner table night after night, knowing what I knew, watching my father plan a party for a daughter he was about to rob. There were moments I nearly stood up and said it all out loud. Dad, I know. Mason, the contract's already worthless. But Adele was right, and I knew she was right. If I tipped them off, they'd just find another road around me, and I'd spend a year in court instead of a morning. So I stayed quiet, and I waited. Here is what I want to ask you before I tell you the rest. Have you ever had to stay silent to protect yourself, even when everything in you wanted to speak? Tell me below. I read them. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because this is where the story turns. 6 days before my birthday, my mother sits down beside me on the couch with the careful, rehearsed gentleness she has been saving up. Now that you're going to be 18, she says, there are some grown-up decisions we should all make together, as a family. Together. The word lands on me like a borrowed coat. That orchard costs money just to sit there, she goes on. Taxes, the insurance, the upkeep, and your father's business has been a struggle, you know that. If we sold it, we could clear the debt and put real money aside for you and Mason both, for your future. I tell her, evenly, that Grandma wanted me to keep it. Something flickers across my mother's face, impatience, smoothed over fast. Your grandmother was sentimental at the end, sweetheart. Sentiment doesn't pay a tax bill. My father walks in right then, on cue, and I genuinely wonder whether they rehearsed it. I've already got a buyer lined up, he says. Strong offer. Fair. I ask who. He blinks. A development outfit. Mason's been dealing with them. Which one? I ask. A longer pause. Hollow Ridge, something like that. They're solid people. I don't push. I'll think about it, I say. My father pats my shoulder. Atta girl. He walks off like he's just closed a sale. Later that night, Mason finds me in the kitchen. He's not the basement door whisperer now. He's all warmth, leaning against the counter, arms folded loose. "Hey, I know Mom and Dad came at you kind of strong. I just want you to get the whole picture." He lays out the number for me himself this time, the same way he must lay out a financing package for a nervous buyer at the lot. "The land alone is worth $420. I can get the whole thing closed fast, clean, no headaches for you. And you walk away with $30,000 for college." He lets that sit, like it's generous. 30 out of 420, I say. Mason smiles like I've said something charming. "You're 18, Ren. 30 grand is real money for somebody your age. Most kids would bite your hand off for it." I look at him. "Whose name is on the deed, Mason?" The smile stalls, just for a beat. A flicker behind the eyes, a recalibration, then back. "Grandma's. But she's gone now. It passes to Dad and me. We're next of kin." That is not how it works, and I know it is not how it works, and he sells real estate for a living, so he knows it too. He is betting his whole future on me being a kid who doesn't know it. "I'll think about it," I say again. Mason pushes off the counter. "Don't overthink it. Deals like this don't sit around." He's on his phone before he's out the kitchen door. That night, I text Adele the same 2 words. "They're moving." She answers, "Stay the course." 6 days. The night before my birthday, I drive out to the orchard alone. The road is empty. The trees stand in their dark rows against a half moon, and the farmhouse sits black and silent, the way it has since my grandmother died. I let myself in with the key she gave me when I was 14, the one she pressed into my hand and said was, "In case you ever need to get in when I'm not here." I did not understand then that she meant when she was gone for good. I sit at the shimmed kitchen table in the dark and open my laptop. Adele has emailed the full package, the acceptance of beneficiary form, the confirmation, a 1-page summary of the trust, every document tabbed and flagged and waiting for one signature. Mine. I read each page twice. Then I close the laptop and I sit and I listen to the house tick and settle. My grandmother used to sit at this table and say, "Ren, patience isn't the same as doing nothing. Patience is waiting for the right minute and not wasting it when it comes." I always thought she was talking about pie crust. The tears come without any drama to them, just a quiet overflow I let happen, because I wish this were a different story. I wish my father were the kind of man who'd have taught me to drive the orchard rows in that old wagon instead of one who looked at those trees and saw subdivision. I wish my mother had ever once asked me what I wanted instead of telling me what was practical. I wish I were not sitting alone in a dead woman's kitchen at midnight, signing a legal document to protect myself from the people who made me. But wishes don't get recorded at the county office. Trust documents do. I dry my face, lock the door behind me, and drive home. And I set my alarm for 1:15 to midnight, 11:50 at night. My bedroom door is shut. The house has been asleep for an hour. I open my laptop and join the video call, and Adele appears in her own home office, half glasses on, a desk lamp throwing everything else into shadow. "Ready?" she asks. I am. "When that clock turns over, you are a legal adult in every way the law recognizes. I'll walk you through it." She takes me through it one last time, clear and slow. At 12:01, I sign the acceptance of beneficiary, the single page that confirms I am formally receiving the trust my grandmother built for me. From that second forward, every decision about anything inside that trust runs through me and Adele together. "First thing in the morning," she says, 8 o'clock, I'm at the county recorder's office and I file the lease pendants. The instant it's recorded, nobody can sell or transfer or encumber that land while it stands. The chain of title shows the trust recorded 6 years ago. Anything your father or brother tries to file against it gets flagged and rejected on the spot. She pauses, and her voice loses just a little of its lawyer's edge. This isn't a trick, Wren. This is the last thing your grandmother ever did for you. You just had to be old enough to take it. The clock on my screen reads 12:03. I am 18. I am the sole beneficiary of the Castellano family irrevocable trust. And across town, in the kitchen of his apartment, my brother Mason is printing a quitclaim deed that became a dead piece of paper 3 minutes ago, and he has no idea. I learned the rest later, in pieces, partly from what the county clerk told Adele, and partly from what my father finally admitted to me weeks afterward, in one of the hard conversations that came. But here is what was happening across town while I was signing my name. Mason had printed his quitclaim deed, the one-page form that transfers property from one party to another with no guarantee whatsoever that the person signing it actually owns anything. A perfectly legal instrument, used correctly. A crime, used the way he meant to use it. He'd called my father at 11:30. It's all set. We filed at 9. The office opens at 8, but I want Wren good and distracted with the party stuff first. And my father had asked, the way he'd asked through the basement door, "You're sure about this?" And Mason had said, "Dad, they're gone. We're the next of kin. It's clean." It was not clean. It was forgery wearing the costume of a routine real estate transfer. And on the same laptop, Mason had a second document open, his purchase agreement with Hollow Ridge Estates, LLC. $420,000, closing 30 days after the quitclaim recorded. He had signed that agreement 2 months earlier, before the title was ever properly searched, before anyone confirmed the orchard had even passed into the estate, which it had not. If he couldn't deliver a clean title inside that window, he'd owe Hollow Ridge a penalty of $42,000 plus damages. My brother had wagered nearly $500,000 on a piece of land that did not belong to him, and he wouldn't know it for another 9 hours. My birthday party starts at 4 the next afternoon. The living room fills up, maybe 25 people, neighbors, 2 couples from my parents' church, a man my father used to do business with, Mason's girlfriend, the family from down the Orchard Road, Della Voss, who lived next to my grandmother for 30 years and watched her plant half those trees. There are balloons and a silver banner and a sheep cake from the grocery bakery. I smile. I thank everyone. I open the small gifts, a journal, a gift card, a framed photo of me at 13 on the orchard ladder that Della brought, which nearly undoes me. In the inside pocket of my jacket, folded into a tight square, is the acceptance form I signed at midnight. I don't touch it. I don't need to. It is already done. My father stands near the cake and taps his glass. The room quiets. I just want to say, Wren's officially an adult today, and her mom and I couldn't be prouder. He pauses, and his eyes sweep the room. And as a family, we've got some exciting plans for the future. He looks right at me. Isn't that right, Wren? Every face in the room turns. Thanks, Dad, I say. Nothing else. He waits a beat, then laughs it off and lifts his glass, and the room lifts theirs, and the talking starts up again. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Mason by the front door, thumbs going fast on his phone. And then Della Voss catches my elbow as I pass the window and leans in close, smelling of the rose water she's worn my whole life. Your grandmother would want you to know, she says quietly. I saw your brother out at the orchard last week with 2 men in good suits. They were pacing off the property line with a measuring wheel. Mason had walked the buyers across the land before he ever held the title. That is how certain he was. After the cake is cut and the plates go around, my father stands again, and this time his voice is bigger, pitched for an audience he has been waiting for. Before everybody heads out, I want to share something. As some of you know, it's been a hard couple of years for us with the business. Sympathetic murmurs. But my mother left us something. The orchard out on Quail Hollow Road. And as a family, we've decided the right thing is to sell it, to take care of everybody's future. We've decided. The words land on me like cold water down the back of my neck. He is announcing it to 25 people as though it is settled, as though it is done. He looks straight at me. Wren understands. She knows it's what's best for all of us. Don't you, sweetheart? The room waits. Every eye finds me. Della with her hand at her throat. Mason half turned in the doorway. My mother, smiling the practiced smile. It's what families do, my mother adds gently. We make sacrifices for each other. I set my plastic fork down on my plate. The little tap of it is the only sound in the room. I never agreed to sell the orchard, Dad. My father's smile holds, but every muscle around his jaw goes rigid. She's joking. Birthday nerves. I'm not joking. Mason steps in from the doorway. Come on, Wren. This isn't the time or the place. I pick up my water, take a slow sip, set it down. You're right, Uncle Mason. I catch myself and don't bother to fix it. This isn't the time. The time is 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Silence. Mason's phone buzzes in his hand. He doesn't look at it. Nobody in the room moves. The guests start finding their coats after that. Polite goodbyes, careful smiles, the way people leave when they can feel a storm gathering inside somebody else's house. Within half an hour, it's down to family and Della and one neighbor couple lingering by the door, unsure whether to flee or stay. My mother waits until the last near stranger is gone, and then she turns on me in the kitchen, her voice low but pitched to Carrie. Do you have any idea what your father is dealing with right now? She steps closer. We could lose this house, Wren. The house you sleep in. And you want to hold on to some run-down orchard you visit on the weekends? I go every weekend, Mom. That is not the point. She presses her palms flat on the counter. We are a family. Families decide things together, and if you actually loved this family, you wouldn't need some lawyer telling you what to do. The kitchen goes still. How do you know about a lawyer? I say. My mother does not blink. Mason saw the card. In your bag. Last week. Adele Ferraro. Who is she, Wren? My stomach drops, not from fear, but from understanding that they have been going through my things, hunting for something they could use. Before I can answer, Della Voss's voice comes from the kitchen doorway, even and hard. That girl has every right in the world to talk to a lawyer, Diane. Lucia would have wanted it. My mother wheels around. This is a family matter, Della. Please. Della doesn't move an inch. Lucia was my friend for 30 years. I expect I know what she wanted better than most. The silence between them could crack a window. I don't say anything. I don't have to. Della leaves, the neighbor couple slipping out behind her, and then it is just the five of us. My father, my mother, Mason, my 15-year-old sister Brooke, half hidden on the stairs, and me. My father closes the kitchen door. The light over the sink hums. He pulls out a chair, sits, folds his hands on the table like a man laying out terms. Here is how this goes, Wren. His voice is low and deliberate. Tomorrow morning, Mason and I go down to the county office. We file the paperwork. The orchard sells. You get your share, a fair share, and we all move on as a family. What's my share? $30,000. Out of how much? He doesn't answer. Mason from the doorway fills the silence. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I look at my father. And if I say no? His jaw sets. If you fight this, you're on your own. No help with school. and you don't live under this roof. The faucet drips once into the quiet. You're threatening to put me out of the house on my 18th birthday. I'm asking you to be part of this family. I push back from the table and stand. My voice is steady, even though my hands are not. I am part of this family, Dad. I'm the part that keeps her promises. I walk past Mason, past Brooke sitting small on the stairs with her arms around her knees, and I go up to my room and shut the door. My father thinks his deadline is 9 a.m. at the county recorder's office. He does not know that Adele's deadline is 8. I sat on my bed that night, holding the acceptance form I had already signed at midnight, and I thought about how my father had just threatened to throw me out of my own family over an orchard that was already legally mine, and how my mother had told me I didn't love them, and how my brother was at that very moment printing a forged deed to file at first light. And the only clear thought I could find, underneath all of it, was that my grandmother had seen every bit of this coming. She had known exactly who these people would become the day there was real money on the table. And she had spent 6 years quietly building the one thing that could stop them. And she had hidden the key to it under a quilt, where only the granddaughter who did the watering would ever find it. If someone who loved you ever built something to protect you, even from beyond their own death, I'd truly like to hear about it. Tell me in the comments. Now, let me tell you what happened at 8 a.m. 8 o'clock. The county recorder's office unlocks its doors. The fluorescent lights stutter on. A clerk in a green cardigan raises the blind at the front counter. Adele Ferraro is the first person through the door. Gray blazer, leather folder under one arm. She lays 2 documents on the counter, a certified copy of the Castellano Family Irrevocable Trust and a lis pendens notice, and asks that they be recorded against the Quail Hollow Road parcel. The clerk pulls the existing title, reads it, checks it against Adele's documents, and stamps them. Recorded. From that minute on, anyone who pulls the title on that orchard will see, in black and white, a notice of pending legal interest. Castellano Family Irrevocable Trust. Adele Ferraro, trustee. Ren Castellano, beneficiary. At 14 minutes past 8, my phone rings. It's done, Adele says. The lis pendens is recorded. The title is frozen. Whatever they walk in with this morning will be rejected on chain of title grounds. I am sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal. My father is upstairs, getting dressed. My mother is making coffee. Ordinary morning sounds. Water in the pipes, a closet door, the snap of a belt buckle. At 8:30, my father and Mason come down together. My father is in a button-down shirt, the one he used to wear to the bank when the car washes were doing well. Mason has the folder under his arm, the same folder as always. We'll be back by lunch, my father says, scooping his keys off the hook. I look up from my bowl. Good luck, I say. He pauses in the doorway and looks at me, something in my voice or my face catching at him for half a second. Then he turns and walks out. I rinse my bowl. I dry it. I put it away in the cabinet, and I wait. I will never know exactly what their faces did, but I know what happened, because Adele stayed at the recorder's office on purpose. 9:05. Mason walks to the counter and slides his quitclaim deed across with an easy, confident nod. My father stands behind him, hands in his pockets, glancing around the room like they'll be in and out in 10 minutes. The clerk takes the document, types the parcel number into her system, reads the screen, types again, then stops. I can't record this, sir. Mason leans in. Sorry? This parcel is held by the Castellano Family Irrevocable Trust. The deed was recorded into the trust in 2018. There's also a lis pendens filed this morning. That's not possible, Mason says. My grandmother owned that land. Sir, the deed transferred to the trust 6 years ago. The chain of title is clear. This quitclaim doesn't match the current ownership of record. My father steps up beside him. There's no trust. Our mother never said anything about a trust. The clerk glances between them. I'd suggest you speak with the trustee named on the filing, an Adele Ferraro. Mason's hand goes flat on the counter, and the color drains out of his face. Because Adele Ferraro's name, the name off the business card they pulled out of my bag, is now stamped onto a public record they cannot touch. My father turns to Mason, slow. You told me this was simple. I didn't know about any trust. You sell property for a living. How did you not run the title? Mason opens his mouth and closes it and opens it again. Gentlemen, the clerk says, even and bored. I'll need you to take this outside if you're going to have words. And Adele, sitting in a chair by the door with her folder on her lap, watches them go and does not say a thing. Because she does not need to. The call comes at 9:22. I'm on the porch, watching a neighbor's sprinkler swing back and forth across the lawn. What did you do? My father's voice is tight and shaking. I can hear traffic behind him. He's in the parking lot. I accepted what Grandma left me. That's all. You went behind our backs with some lawyer none of us ever heard of. Adele Ferraro has been the trust's attorney for 6 years, Dad. You just never asked Grandma a single question about her own affairs. A long breath on the line. That is my mother's land, Wren. I am her son. She should have left it to me. I keep my voice level. She didn't leave it to you. And it wasn't because she didn't love you. It was because she didn't trust you with it. The silence after that is the longest of my life. I count the sprinkler's arcs, 3 full passes, before he speaks again. I'll contest it. You can try, but it's irrevocable, Dad. That means even Grandma couldn't have undone it once it was made. There's nothing to undo. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. I've had 3 months to learn. He hangs up. No goodbye. Just the click and the dead air. I set the phone on the railing, and my hands are shaking, and not from anger, and not from fear, but from the simple weight of having said those words to my own father. From knowing that the man who taught me to ride a bike in the church parking lot when I was 6 is the same man who this morning tried to sell my grandmother's trees out from under me with a forged piece of paper. I sit there until the shaking stops. It takes a while. Then the phone buzzes again. An unfamiliar number, a man's voice, fast and corporate. Ms. Castellano? Carter Beal, Hollow Ridge Development. I think you and I need to talk. Carter Beal talks the way developers talk, 3 calculations deep before the sentence he's saying is over. We hold a purchase agreement with Mason Castellano for the Quail Hollow parcel. He guaranteed us clean title. We've just learned there's a lis pendens on it. That's correct, I say. My brother doesn't own that land, Mr. Beal. He never did. It's been held in an irrevocable trust since 2018. I'm the sole beneficiary. A pause. Paper shifting. He represented himself as the heir. I understand, but representing yourself as the owner doesn't make you one. I'd take this up with him and with your own attorney. A longer pause. Ms. Castellano, is there any chance of a sale directly? We'd make the trust a strong offer. The orchard is not for sale. Understood. His voice cools. Then we'll be pursuing our remedies against Mr. Castellano. I give him Adele's number. Within the hour, she has confirmed to Hollow Ridge's lawyers what I already told him. The trust is valid, Mason had no authority, and the purchase agreement was signed on a misrepresentation of ownership. Hollow Ridge moves the same day. Breach of contract, the $42,000 penalty, and another $60,000 in damages and costs. And that afternoon, Adele calls me with one more thing, her voice careful and flat. Wren, the quitclaim Mason tried to file, it carried a notary stamp. I had the recorder pull a copy before they bounced it. That stamp doesn't match any notary commissioned in this county. It looks forged. I close my eyes. That's a felony. In this state, yes. My brother had not only tried to steal my grandmother's orchard, he had committed a crime to try. My father comes home at 2 p.m. He moves through the front door like a man carrying something enormous that no one else can see. My mother is already in the kitchen, arms crossed, her face blotched from an hour of furious crying. I'm at the dining table, and I don't stand up. My father sits down across from me and stares at the wood for a long time. I'm going to lose this house, Wren, he finally says, his voice scraped empty. The bank's after me for $190,000. The car washes are gone. That orchard was supposed to be the way out. I know you're struggling, Dad. I'm sorry about the business. I am. Then help us. The orchard was never your way out. It was Grandma's gift to me. A gift? He almost laughs. For what? You're 18. What does an 18-year-old do with 11 acres of dying apple trees? It's not about what I do with it. It's about what she wanted. My mother steps into the doorway. They were old, Wren. They weren't thinking straight at the end. She was thinking straight enough to hire a lawyer 6 years before she died. My father's palm comes down flat on the table. I'll contest the trust. And a voice comes out of my phone, lying face up between us, because I had called Adele before he walked in and left the line open, not to trap him, just to save everyone time. Mr. Castellano. Adele's voice, even and unhurried. Contesting an irrevocable trust that was established 6 years before the grantor's death, with capacity documented and witnesses on file, will cost you more in legal fees than this entire property is worth. And you will lose. I would advise against it as strongly as I am able. The kitchen goes silent. The faucet drips. And my father looks at me, really looks. And for the first time in my life, I see in his face not anger, but something else. Recognition. 2 hours later, Mason calls the house. My father takes it in the living room, and I'm in the hall, close enough to hear every word through the thin wall. Hollow Ridge is suing me, Mason says, his voice stripped raw. The penalty, the damages, all of it. They're saying I committed fraud. My father's reply is colder than I have ever heard him. Did you? I thought we owned it. You sell real estate, Mason. You run title searches for a living. How did you not check? I assumed. You assumed. And now there's a felony referral on your forged notary stamp. A long silence on the line. I didn't forge anything. I used a stamp I had. That's forgery. You know that's forgery. Mason's breathing goes heavy and ragged. I need a lawyer. So do I. My father pauses. Don't call this house again until you've got one. He hangs up, and I hear the couch springs give as he sits down, and then nothing. Over the next 3 weeks, the consequences come down like a row of falling dominoes, and each one makes its own sound. Hollow Ridge files its civil suit against Mason. The county recorder's office sends a referral about the forged stamp to the district attorney, and an investigator is assigned. Mason's real estate license is suspended pending the outcome, which means whatever income he had simply stops. Word travels in a town this size, not because I say a single word, I don't, but because court filings are public, and the suit names the orchard by parcel number, and the neighbors out on Quail Hollow read the county paper. By the second week, the story has made it through the church and the diner and the line at the feed store. Harold and Lucia's son tried to sell the orchard, and the granddaughter stopped him. That's the version that circulates. Some people decide I was brave. Some people decide I was cold. I don't correct either one. Mason calls me once. I answer. Wren, please, can you ask your lawyer to lift the lis pendens? If the title clears, I might be able to renegotiate with Hollow Ridge, knock the penalty down. The lis pendens protects my land, Mason. It stays. Grandma would be ashamed of you. I let that sit for a moment. Then I say, quietly, Grandma is the one who set all this up. She planned it. She chose me. So no, I don't think ashamed is the word for what she'd feel. He hangs up. On my desk, there is a framed photograph of my grandmother and me on the orchard ladder the autumn I was 13, both of us squinting into the sun. I leave it exactly where it is. My father does not contest the trust. Adele was right. The fees alone would have buried him, and the case would have gone nowhere. An irrevocable trust, made by a competent grantor, properly witnessed and notarized and recorded years before her death, is about as solid as the law gets. Instead, my father does the thing he should have done 2 years before. He sells what's left of the car washes at a loss, but enough to negotiate a repayment plan and keep the house. Barely. My mother goes back to work for the first time in 11 years, behind a counter at the pharmacy on Vine Street, the same chain she worked for before Brooke was born. When neighbors ask, she says she likes staying busy. Nobody believes it, and nobody pushes. My father and I don't speak for 2 weeks. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent, the silence sitting in the rooms like furniture. Della Voss drives over one afternoon with a pie. Peach, still warm. Your folks made their own choices, she says, setting the tin on my desk. But they're still your folks. Don't go carrying their shame around for them. That weight's theirs. I nod. And then Brooke calls me one evening from a friend's house, her voice very small. Wren, I don't get all of what happened, but I'm sorry they put you through it. My throat closes. Thanks, Brooke. Are you okay? I'm getting there. Me too. I drive out to the orchard on a Saturday morning in late April. The first blossom is just breaking on the oldest trees, white and faintly pink against the new green. I let myself in with the same key my grandmother gave me when I was 14. The farmhouse smells the way it has always smelled, cut grass and old wood, and that sweet thing underneath I have decided is simply the trees themselves, decades of sun soaked into the timber. I walk through every room. The kitchen table, still solid, still level on its shimmed leg. The bed where she read to me. The porch where we watched the light go gold. In the desk drawer by the window, just where Adele told me it would be, is an envelope. My name across it in my grandmother's slanting hand. Adele had been holding the location of it until the trust was settled, the way my grandmother instructed. I open it carefully. It is a single page in blue ink, the writing going looser toward the bottom the way hers did when she was tired. She tells me she knows her son will try to sell the orchard, and that she doesn't blame him exactly. She loves him. He is her boy. But he never once learned the difference between a thing that has a price and a thing that is precious. She tells me she chose me not because I am the smartest or the easiest, but because I am the one who asked whether the well pump needed priming before I ever asked what the land was worth. The last line says, "Take care of it. It took care of you first." I fold the letter. I sit on the porch. I breathe. Adele calls me the following week. The lis pendens can come off now, she says, with no active threat to the title. Once it does, the record will show the trust as sole owner. Clean. No clouds, no liens. Mason settled with Hollow Ridge, paid the $42,000 out of a personal loan, and the deal is dead. The district attorney is still reviewing the forged stamp. He could face a misdemeanor, possibly a felony, and his license stays suspended while the criminal referral is open. I sit with that, and I don't feel triumphant. I feel the kind of tiredness that comes after a long fever breaks. Not sick anymore, but not quite well. And then Adele tells me one more thing. There's a separate piece your grandparents set aside inside the trust, Wren. An education fund. $50,000, earmarked specifically for your schooling. It's been earning interest for 6 years. The balance now is just over 58. My eyes sting. 50,000. The exact number my father offered me as my fair share. The exact number Mason dangled like bait. My grandmother had set it aside, quietly, years before, and told no one. Wren? Are you there?
I'm here,
I say, and my voice cracks just a little. Your grandmother would be proud of you. I just kept a promise, Adele. I enrolled at the regional college that week, environmental science, with a minor in horticulture. The campus is 20 minutes from the orchard, closer than my parents' house. On the housing form, under current address, I write the orchard's address for the first time, and it feels like coming home, because it is. I ask my parents to meet me at the coffee shop on Maple Street. Neutral ground. Not the house, not the orchard, somewhere quiet and public. They came together. My father was wearing a flannel I hadn't seen in years, one of my grandfather's. My mother held her purse against her side, the way she holds things when she's frightened. We ordered. I waited until the cups were on the table. I love you, I said. Both of you. I need you to hear that, because what I'm about to say might not sound like it. My mother's jaw tightened, but she nodded. The orchard is not for sale. Not now, not ever. And I'm not going to be made to feel like a bad daughter for keeping a promise Grandma trusted me to keep, because she trusted me to keep it after she'd watched everyone else. My father stared into his coffee. I'm not cutting you out of my life, I went on. But if we're going to have one, it has to be built on something other than what I can hand over. Not money, not guilt, not the idea that I owe you the one thing she left specifically to me. My mother started. We only ever wanted what was best for, then start by being honest about what happened. You tried to sell something that wasn't yours. You threatened to put me out on the street. You went through my bag. She closed her mouth. My father still hadn't looked up. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I don't know how to come back from this. You don't have to do it today, I said. I stood, left enough cash for all 3 coffees. I'll call you Sunday. He nodded, one small nod. I walked out into the sunlight. It is the most I can hope for right now, and it turns out that is enough. Brooke shows up at the orchard on a Sunday in May, carrying a grocery store rotisserie chicken and wearing the enormous hoodie she's had since 7th grade. I brought dinner, she says. Figured you wouldn't have eaten. We sit on the porch with paper plates on our knees. The lake the orchard slopes down toward is flat and bright, and a heron stands in the reeds at the edge of it, perfectly still, waiting on something under the surface. Nobody told me any of it, she says finally. Mom and Dad never said a word. I know. Was I part of the problem? I look at her, 15, narrow-shouldered, still becoming whoever she's going to be. She never chose to be the favored one. She didn't know the brightness they shone on her had to be borrowed from somewhere, and that the somewhere was me. You were a kid, Brooke. So was I. She nods and picks at her plate. It's really pretty out here, she says, looking at the water. Grandma said that every single time she sat in that chair. Brooke glances at the empty chair beside mine, the one with the armrest my grandmother wore smooth with her own hand. Can I come back sometimes? Anytime. She leans her head on my shoulder for a second, then sits up and keeps eating. We don't talk about our parents, or trusts, or lawsuits. We talk about her science project, and the heron, and whether the dock needs new boards this summer. The orchard didn't only protect a piece of land. It made room for something. To start over. Early June, 6 in the morning, I'm on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the mist lift off the water and the first sun cut sharp through the orchard rows. Somewhere out past the trees, a bird I can't name says 2 notes and goes quiet. I did not win against my family. There is no winning when the people who hurt you are the very ones who were supposed to keep you safe. Nobody hands you a trophy for surviving something that should never have been allowed to happen. But I kept a promise, and for the first time in my life, I am standing on ground that is genuinely mine. Not because I fought hard enough to earn it, but because 2 people loved me enough years ago to see the storm before it ever showed on the horizon, and to build me a shelter while I was still a child who didn't know she'd need one. My grandmother couldn't make my father less desperate, or my mother less afraid, or my brother less hungry for money that was never his, but she could make sure I had something solid to put my feet on. Literally. I think about the letter in the drawer, about that line in her looping, tired hand, the difference between a thing that has a price and a thing that is precious. This orchard is both, but only one of those can be measured. And my family spent 2 years staring at the wrong one. I sip my coffee. The mist burns off. The water turns from gray to blue. If you're listening to this and you feel like there's no one standing in your corner, I want you to hear me out. Sometimes the people protecting you aren't the ones in the room. Sometimes they protected you years ago, quietly, without ever telling you. And all that's left for you to do is grow up, show up, sign the paper, and keep the promise. Peace doesn't come from getting even. It comes from standing on something that can't be taken, and knowing exactly who put it under your feet. That's my story. If it made you feel something, anything, I hope you'll do one thing for me. Tell me in the comments, if you could protect one thing in your life, one place, one person, one promise, what would it be? I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, and if you haven't yet, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.